Are you sure that morning cup of coffee is completely safe? More than 2 million coffee and pastry products have been recalled across the United States because of contamination with bacteria, mold, bits of plastic, and even toxins that can cause paralysis. Even more alarming, some everyday coffee brands sold in supermarkets or popular chains contain substances that may lead to nerve-related cancers if they build up over time. And the scariest part is this: there are no warnings on the label. Nobody tells you. If you drink packaged coffee, pre-ground beans, or stick to the same go-to coffee shops, you need to watch this video. This is not a warning for the wealthy. It is a wake-up call for anyone who drinks coffee every day believing it is harmless. Number 1. Dunkin. Who would ever think a cup of Dunkin coffee could land them in the hospital? For years, Dunkin was the go-to morning stop for millions of Americans, from truck drivers to retirees. A hot cup of coffee, a cheap donut, that easygoing everyday vibe. Nobody questioned it, but things aren't the same anymore. In early 2025, FGF Brands, a major supplier of baked goods for Dunkin, was forced to recall more than 2 million units nationwide. The list included popular pastries sold with Dunkin coffee, such as coffee rolls, muffins, and old-fashioned donuts. The reason: possible contamination with Listeria monocytogenes, a bacteria that can cause meningitis, sepsis, miscarriage, and even death, especially in seniors and pregnant women. And that wasn't all. An independent test by the food watchdog Clean Label Project at the end of 2024 found traces of lead and aflatoxin in some ground coffee distributed at Dunkin, particularly the Dunkin Original Blend Medium Roast. While the levels did not exceed FDA legal limits, they were enough to raise concern about long-term buildup, especially for those who drink 2 or 3 cups a day for years. Think about this. If your grandparents live alone and still believe their Dunkin coffee is a healthy old habit, do they realize those hidden substances may be slowly attacking their nervous system? A 2023 study in the Journal of Clinical Neurology showed a clear link between blood lead levels and memory decline in people over 60. Aflatoxin, on the other hand, is a toxin created by mold in poor storage conditions and can lead to liver damage if consumed long-term. And here's the catch: neither lead nor aflatoxin has a clear taste or smell. Consumers can't detect them at all. Even more troubling was the silence. During the recall, very few Dunkin stores posted notices at the counter. Many customers only realized after finishing most of their pastry, or worse, after experiencing diarrhea and high fever. States like Massachusetts and Pennsylvania even reported a slight uptick in Listeria cases in the first quarter of 2025, though not all were directly confirmed to come from Dunkin. And if you think this was just a one-off problem, remember that back in 2022, a batch of Dunkin canned coffee sold in supermarkets had also been recalled due to contamination risks from the lids during packaging. At the time, the media barely mentioned it. But now, with repeated incidents stacking up, people are asking a serious question: is Dunkin trading safety for speed and low costs? Of course, not every Dunkin product is dangerous. But the real question is, are you still willing to gamble with your morning routine? Especially when these products mainly target the most vulnerable groups: seniors, people with health conditions, and those on fixed incomes who choose Dunkin because it is cheap, familiar, and convenient. So now it is time to ask yourself a serious question. Do you read the label on your coffee? Do you know what Dunkin's packaged ground coffee really contains? Are you sure what you're drinking is really just coffee? If you still want to drink Dunkin coffee, steer clear of the Original Blend Medium Roast in bagged or canned form. Avoid coffee rolls unless you know for certain where they came from. And better yet, choose whole beans roasted close to the date of purchase and check carefully for FDA warnings. Do not drink out of habit, because you deserve a safe morning, not just a tasty one. Number 2. Maxwell House. If you are someone who drinks dark roast coffee every morning, especially the packaged kind from the supermarket, take a moment to think about what you are really consuming. You may be taking in more acrylamide than you realize. And if the label on your bag says Maxwell House, your concern is not misplaced. Maxwell House is not a stranger to American households. It has been part of daily life for millions across generations. Some people have been drinking it for 30 years, 1 cup every morning without missing a day. That loyalty, however, has a hidden cost. Because very few people stop to question whether a familiar old affordable brand might carry a slow and silent health risk. Maxwell House coffees, especially the darker roasts, like French roast and dark roast, contain higher levels of acrylamide than the market average. Multiple independent testing groups in 2023 and 2024 found that certain samples had up to 25% more acrylamide compared to lighter roasts or specialty coffees. Acrylamide is a chemical that forms naturally when food is roasted at high heat, but the World Health Organization has listed it as possibly carcinogenic to humans. Research has also shown it can affect the nervous system, particularly in older adults. The troubling part is that there are no warnings printed on the packaging. And unless you live in California, where products with acrylamide once carried a Prop 65 warning, chances are you would never even know it was there. It has no smell, no taste, no immediate effect. But if you drink the same coffee every day for 10 or 20 years, are you certain it leaves no trace? Maxwell House is not the only coffee brand that contains acrylamide. The difference is that they offer no usage guidance for seniors, no public disclosure of independent test results, and no recommendation on safe consumption levels. Yet their most loyal customers are exactly those who are most vulnerable: retirees, people with underlying health conditions, and those living alone with a daily coffee habit. Picture this. A 75-year-old man sitting alone on his porch, hands trembling as he pours himself a cup of Maxwell House dark roast. It is not just a nostalgic image. It could also be a slow buildup of a dangerous chemical he has no idea about. And when memory loss begins or blood pressure starts to spike, nobody thinks to blame something as small as his morning coffee. Maybe you are thinking, but Maxwell House isn't banned, so it must be within safe limits, right? That is true. They are not breaking the law, but not everything that is legal is safe. And not everything that has not been challenged in court is harmless. What worries people most is not the numbers. It is the silence. Silence from the brand. Silence from the media. Silence so complete that lifelong drinkers never even consider checking what is in the coffee they have been pouring since their working years. It is also worth noting that Maxwell House is a common presence in budget stores like Walmart, Dollar General, and Walgreens. Their deep discount strategy makes them appealing to shoppers with limited budgets. But the real cost is not on the receipt. It is in the liver, the brain, and the nervous system of people who believe that cheap does not mean risky. Have you ever bought Maxwell House dark roast? Have you ever noticed the bitterness getting sharper, but brushed it off as your taste changing? Have you ever felt lingering fatigue without linking it back to your daily cup? If you have ever had those nagging doubts, maybe it is time to ask yourself, is familiarity slowly killing me? And if you are considering making a change, the first step could be simple: stop buying dark roast, switch to light roast, or choose local roasters with clear safety certifications. We cannot control every risk in life, but we can control what we pour into our cup each morning. And with coffee, that choice can mean the difference between a healthy life and years of vague, unexplained symptoms. Number 3, Starbucks. It all begins with what looks like an innocent image, a sleek cup of coffee green siren logo shining in the hand of a commuter every morning. Starbucks is not just a coffee brand, it is a symbol of modern lifestyle, of taste, of I've got my life together. But beneath that polished surface are details most people would rather not face. There has been no loud recall, no flashing red warning. But Starbucks has food safety experts sounding the alarm. Not because the company is breaking laws, but because of how it sidesteps them, avoids clear warnings, and blurs the line between luxury and safety. One example is Starbucks' involvement in a California class action lawsuit tied to Prop 65. The case centered on acrylamide, a chemical listed as a potential carcinogen. Instead of reformulating products or warning consumers, Starbucks chose silence, leaning on a legal loophole that allowed them to skip labeling requirements. In other words, unless you follow court filings or niche food news, you would never know what you are actually consuming. And it goes further. Starbucks has expanded its menu with trendy drinks like olive oil-infused coffee cold foam creations and specialty frappuccinos. Few people realize many of these drinks include artificial sweeteners, thickeners, flavorings, or ingredients that can upset the digestive system in sensitive individuals. A clear example was Oleato, the olive oil coffee launched in early 2024, which quickly led to hundreds of complaints about nausea, stomach pain, and diarrhea. Still, no recall was announced. Starbucks maintained the drinks were within safe limits. But that raises the question, safe? By whose standard? For someone young and healthy, maybe it does not matter. But what about people on heart medication, older adults, or those with IBS? Starbucks customers are not ordering these drinks to take risks. They order them because they trust the brand, trust the testing, and trust a name that has become part of global consumer culture. Another concern is the way Starbucks presents nutrition facts. On the app, the website, or in-store, many ingredients are listed under vague, elegant-sounding labels, or simply hidden under the umbrella of natural flavors. Even careful label-reading customers often cannot figure out what is really in their favorite drink. One customer reported that they only discovered sucralose, an artificial sweetener, in their frappuccino after carefully checking each syrup option. For someone managing insulin, diabetes, or simply avoiding synthetic sugars, sucralose is not something you want to unknowingly drink every day. Starbucks has also faced criticism for sourcing beans from regions where pesticides banned in Europe are still used. While the company promotes ethical sourcing and carries Rainforest Alliance seals, much of the verification process relies on internal reporting rather than full transparency. The issue is not blatant lawbreaking. The issue is that what consumers assume is a high standard may not be as clear as it looks. And here is one undeniable truth: Starbucks excels at creating the feeling that you are making a good choice. From store design to menu wording to marketing language, everything is engineered to build trust. But trust is not the same as transparency, and the feeling of safety is not always the same as actual safety. Do you grab Starbucks every morning on your way to work? Have you ever felt off after a cold brew but brushed it off as skipping breakfast? Have you ever read the full nutrition label on your go-to drink? If so, maybe this is the moment to look again, not to boycott, not to panic, but simply to recognize that no brand is too big to escape the question, what am I really drinking? And with Starbucks, that question deserves to be asked more seriously than ever. Number 4, Black Rifle Coffee. There was a time when Black Rifle Coffee stood as a symbol of pushing back against the system. They were not just selling coffee, they were selling a statement. A cup of Black Rifle was not only caffeine, it was a way to declare your values: patriotic, pro-veteran, anti-liberal hypocrisy. That made the brand wildly popular with millions of Americans, especially conservative voters, retirees, and veterans. But then a question began to surface: was the brand really living up to what it preached? In 2021, a batch of Black Rifle coffee products was quietly recalled over concerns about plastic fragments in the packaging process. It was not a major safety threat and did not cause direct harm, but the way the company handled it was telling: quietly, without broad public notice. Retail partners were informed, but the everyday consumer, the people buying and drinking the coffee because they trusted the brand, were left largely in the dark. By 2023, an internal legal battle broke out. Partner SEI Industrial filed a lawsuit accusing Black Rifle Coffee of financial fraud, breaking investment commitments, and manipulating revenue reports. This was not rumor. It was an official court case, public record. A brand that once prided itself on being honest and uncompromising was now being accused of manipulation and backtracking with its own partners. Consumers began to wonder if they would do this to strategic allies. How transparent were they with their customers? Black Rifle's draw had always been more about message than coffee. But that message is now being hollowed out from within. Recent product reviews point to a dip in quality, inconsistent flavor, signs of old beans being re-roasted to clear out stock. Some customers reported opening a fresh bag that already had a faint stale smell, far from the fresh roasted promise the brand once pushed. What makes this more striking is that Black Rifle is still expanding. They went public, built out retail stores, pumped money into advertising. But the bigger they grew, the more they looked like a conventional corporate machine, and the further they drifted from the image of being the backbone for those who served. Loyal customers began to feel that disconnect. In online groups once dedicated to supporting the brand, debates broke out. Some defended Black Rifle, arguing that every big company hits bumps. But many others felt betrayed, especially as quality slipped while prices kept rising. And here is another issue: when independent labs compared coffee brands, Black Rifle did not come out ahead. They do not publish exact caffeine content, do not disclose detailed sourcing for each lot, do not carry organic certifications, and do not provide clarity on post-harvest chemical treatments. Strip away the rugged name, the gun-themed packaging, and the military imagery, and the coffee itself does not rise above average. If you are an older consumer living on a fixed income, counting every dollar, what you need is not a cup of coffee wrapped in slogans. You need safety, honesty, and a brand that respects your money. Black Rifle once offered hope, a patriotic, veteran-supporting company, made in America, straightforward and solid. But the reality has shifted: sharp PR, strong marketing, yet declining quality and questionable ethics. Did you once buy Black Rifle because of the veteran imagery on the bag? Did you believe it was the patriotic choice? Do you still feel confident brewing that cup every morning? If you have started to doubt, maybe your instincts are right. Not because you have changed, but because what you believed in is no longer the same. Number 5. Death Wish Coffee. One of the oldest tricks in marketing is fear, and Death Wish Coffee hit it big by using that strategy in reverse. They don't make you afraid of drinking coffee, they make you afraid if you don't. With the slogan, "The world's strongest coffee," Death Wish quickly grabbed attention from young adults, night shift workers, long-haul truckers, and even older folks trying to fight off the constant fatigue of aging. But when you attach yourself to an image of being unstoppable, never needing sleep or crushing exhaustion, you're stepping into an extreme way of consuming. And in the case of Death Wish, that extreme might be riskier than you realize. Death Wish coffee is known for its insanely high caffeine content, sometimes 2 or 3 times more than regular coffee. But not everyone understands what that means for the body. According to the American Heart Association, a healthy adult should stay under 400 milligrams of caffeine per day. A 12-ounce cup of Death Wish can pack up to 728 milligrams, nearly double the recommended limit. And if you already have heart disease, high blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, or you're on certain medications, even half of that could trigger cardiovascular problems or sudden spikes in blood pressure. What's surprising is that Death Wish doesn't print any clear warnings about caffeine levels on its packaging. No recommendations for seniors. No guidance for people with health conditions. Nothing to suggest that this is a coffee meant to be consumed in moderation, or that you should monitor how your body reacts. Instead, they market it like anyone can drink it, anyone should try it, and everyone needs more energy. They even put a skull on the label, not as a real health warning, but as a visual joke. In 2024, a consumer watchdog report logged over 500 complaints about dizziness, heart palpitations, shaky hands, or chronic insomnia linked to Death Wish. Many of those cases were from people over 50 who thought strong coffee just means more awake, until they went through a sleepless night with shortness of breath, convinced they were having a stroke. You might think that's just individual sensitivity, but the real issue lies in how the brand frames expectations. They don't lie, but they also don't warn. They let you imagine, let you test it out on your own body. For younger people, that might mean a rough night. For older adults, it could trigger far more serious conditions. Back in 2023, Death Wish was even investigated by the FDA over its nitro brew line, which was suspected of carrying a botulinum contamination risk if stored incorrectly. Even though no official cases were confirmed, the FDA still ordered the company to pull the product. Yet afterward, they went right back to selling other versions with no change in how they warn consumers. Which means that unless you were following FDA updates or digging through food safety reports, you had no idea what risks you were taking. Ironically, Death Wish often shows up in gift boxes, energy bundles, and even care packages for firefighters, police officers, and truckers. The very people working long, sleepless hours. But nobody tells them about the long-term buildup of caffeine, the chronic sleep disruption, or the neurological effects of megadoses of caffeine. Have you ever found yourself relying on coffee so much that you drink 2 cups of Death Wish a day just to keep going? Have you ever brushed it off with, "It's just a little stronger, no big deal"? Have you ever thought the skull on the bag was just clever marketing, not an actual warning? If you have older relatives drinking this coffee without tracking their daily intake, you might want to talk with them. And if you're thinking it's just coffee, you should know that stronger, pricier, flashier doesn't always mean better. Sometimes it's just how companies sell you a feeling, and then leave you to deal with the fallout once your body reaches its breaking point. If you've always believed it's just coffee, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what am I really drinking, and am I actually in control of it? Because once you lose that control, you won't know when your body decides to push back. And by then, every warning will be too late.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.